Welcome to Tell Me a Story, Season 2. My name's Adina Samuels, and I'm inviting anyone and everyone to share their stories with me. Let's see what we get. Today, I sat down with Radz, who shared his experience of living with a mental health disorder and what it was like leading up to and after being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. As Radz says, he's breaking through brick walls, trying to share with people that there's nothing to be ashamed of, that we have to embrace all parts of who we are, and that authenticity is the way to live life. Take a listen. Radz, welcome to Tell Me a Story. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, for sure. I'm Radz. I work in software sales. First generation immigrant, I guess. Came here with my mother 30 plus years ago at this point. Yeah, I've been in tech for about 10 years. You and I worked together at LumiQ, both lovers of podcasts, obviously. And yeah, now my current day job is I'm the founding AE at a company, at a startup called Concio.
Amazing. We can talk about that in a bit, but as you know, the rules of the podcast go that you come on with the story and then you tell me that story. So, what story do you have for me today, Radz?
Yeah, I think it's something that's not talked about enough. Um, we've seen a lot of mental health, a lot of public displays of mental health episodes, particularly with Black men who don't really talk about it a lot. Obviously, there's Kanye and all the crazy stuff that he says. I know a lot of people disagree with what he says. I don't agree with what he says, but I do think that he is someone who needs help, despite whether or not he's worth a bajillion dollars. He needs help, and it almost feels like he's been turned into a spectacle, something to and like watch and enjoy, whether he's invited to a church or whatever it is, and people don't understand. And I think a lot of it is lost because a lot of it is just via text. I've been through situations where I've had, a mental health episode and I'm posting all over social media and it just sounds like crazy, quote unquote, crazy talk. And you don't have the context of it because it's just text. You're not physically seeing the person and that individual and what they're going through. I think Tyrese had something going on when he was crying on camera. So yeah, I think that's very important. So I've got my own journey. I'm not Another important thing that I'm trying to verbalize is I have bipolar. It's not an identity. I am not bipolar. I have bipolar disorder. Um, so yeah.
Can you define that for me, Radz? Like, what does it
Uh,
mean to have bipolar disorder?
yeah. So there's a number of, different mental health diagnoses people can have: personality disorders, bipolar disorder, bipolar or schizophrenia as well. Like, so bipolar, I'll tell the Western and the Eastern
Okay.
of what bipolar is. In the West, it's seen as a period of high highs and low lows, and so that high can be like I'm the best person ever, and the low lows is like self-harm and all of that, and you can go through these cycles where for me I can be very I'm a stereotypical emotional moody Cancer, and the bipolar does not help that. So yeah, bipolar, you can go through different cycles of mania, and that can lead to spending lots of money, very erratic decisions, hypersexuality, a bunch of stuff, all things that I have struggled with. So that's the Western version of what bipolar disorder is. The Eastern version of what these mental health diagnoses are considered. There's this actually really good TED talk called Psychosis or Spiritual Awakening, which was really interesting. And there's this notion of I come from, like, my family's, I, I'm trying to figure out the joke that I usually tell. I cannot tell about my family because this is being recorded, but I come from a certain line of blank lawyers and preachers, and then educators on my mom's side. But before colonization and all of that happened, like I do have ancestors that practiced the African traditional stuff. Like my paternal grandfather actually converted from the African traditional stuff to Christianity, and like converted
Hmm.
entire
Yeah.
their region um for that. And then on top of that, on my mom's side, I think it was my great grandfather, he was a bone caster. So that would be like being able to like cast the bones and be able to interpret stuff, much like if anyone has seen Sinners, what Annie was doing towards the end. So
Fascinating.
those and though and so there's that duality of like being successful in the quote unquote modern Western world, and then the stuff that being successful pre that. So anyways, the other side of what these mental health diagnoses is actually spiritual, where you look at anybody that's creative, right? They always have mental health issues. So creativity and mental unwellness are actually very related.
Hmm.
And so for me, I genuinely think that's kind of what happened, because growing up, I was very, I grew up in rural Alberta, rural Manitoba. For any Americans watching, that's basically like the Texas of Canada and the rural part. So you can imagine being one of the only Black kids around. What was that like? And so, going through those experiences, informed a certain level of like pro-blackness, I guess. And so I was growing up, like when I was a kid, like literally 15 years old, like my family's like, oh, we're worried he's going to join the Black Panther Party or something crazy like that. And then the shift to being in this hyper capitalistic tech sales and selling to all these companies that may or may not be doing bad things all over the world, especially when you're dealing with Fortune 500s. I think it was almost a realignment in a way when I look back at it. Don't get me wrong, like I actually just had an interview with Cam H, and the interviewer paused at the end, and she wanted to say like, I hope you realize that like I always had this dream, or not this dream, like this nostalgia about my first tech sales gig, which was Tulip, where I always look back at it with fondness. But she said, I don't think you were so productive, but the reason why you're so productive is because you were manic the entire time you were there. You just didn't realize it. And then that kind of it reframed my entire view of my career, where I was just like, I've been mentally unwell the entire time. I just didn't notice it. And I started talking to friends who work there. There's like, yeah, you talk like really, really fast. Like one of the jokes is that like you talk like how I talk when I'm on coke. And I'm like, that's not a good thing. That is definitely not. But just certain things like that, where I had this period of hyper productivity and all this stuff, and I'm working super hard towards the school, and getting passed over constantly for that type of stuff, and then to go to the next company, pager duty, and to have like feel like you arrived, but now I'm like super depressed. There's a lot of personal stuff going on, like life altering stuff going on, and I just couldn't like it was like I worked hard to get that opportunity and got there, and then it's not like it slipped through my hands. I was still successful by, traditional standards, but I know that there's so much more I could have done during that era and in that time, and that could have accelerated my career even more so. But that's not what happened. I ended up, having a manic breakdown like shortly after the company went public. And then I think it was like literally 3 months to the day. I think it was April 11th, 2019, July 11th, 2019. I'm diagnosed with bipolar after having to fight for that diagnosis while I'm manic and taking all these medications. And so it was a super tough time to
Can you
recon.
tell me about the diagnosis a little bit? Like before the formal diagnosis, did you have
Yeah.
any inclination that something wasn't quite
Oh yeah, no,
right or
everything was going around. So I spent like probably at least $15,000 in a very short period of time. That was the first
wow.
patient that was like within like a matter of like 2 weeks. Funny, not funny enough, but I'm actually connected with somebody who's like, I wouldn't say he's a mentor, but somebody that's very well known in the space. He's built and sold companies to like Target and a couple other large companies, and I think I can't remember if it was 200. It was definitely in the hundreds of thousands of dollars that he like his friends had to come find him. He was walking down the street in his underpants, like all of his type of stuff. And he spent $200,000, or it was hundred, like, and so like it's it's crazy to see the commonalities between everyone's experiences. And sorry, I'm a little bit all over the place because it's tough to
But
talk
I'm
about.
sure it must have also felt, like, somewhat lonely, I guess. I mean, I think mental health can feel that way where you're experiencing things that perhaps you can't put words to just yet, or if there isn't a
Yeah,
diagnosis yet, you're not sure what you're experiencing, but you know it's something, you know?
yeah, for sure. It was definitely a slippery slope, and I remember telling one of my boys, one of my friends, um, like, "Hey, like, I just feel something's wrong. I feel something's wrong," and I was trying to verbalize it, and then but eventually it was, it was too late. Um, So yeah, so I think we were opening up an office in Atlanta, at the time when I was at PagerDuty. And it was a really big, like, I just made a transition from one department to another department. And this is like, my like time to like shine, right? And it just doesn't go the way it's supposed to. And I started having these panic attacks and they just don't stop. They just did not stop for like months, months, like 2 or 3 a week. It was just it was relentless.
But what
And,
did they look like or what did they feel like?
just like shortness of breath, like you just spot like an incredible amount of thoughts. You're just trying to figure shit out. You're just trying to and it just kept, yeah, it just kept coming. So yeah, it was super hard. So yeah, anyway, so that starts happening. I spend a fuck ton of money. My mom calls and says something's like, I have to come see you. Like it seems like something's wrong. Da 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 da. I'm like, no, I'm fine. He's like, no, I just need to come and see you with my own two eyes because I'm really worried. And then that's when she ended up coming back and forth quite a bit to be of assistance as I was, getting the diagnosis. And so it was a very interesting experience because I think the process that they go about doing stuff, I don't, I just was talking with somebody last night where, they were talking about how they have, glaucoma and or they're starting to feel like they have glaucoma and they were just given like a bunch of medicines to try. And it was just like, it's just trial and error. And like for me, I was given a bunch of medicines and I have friends of friends and friends who were going through similar things at similar times that are no longer here because they were just given a bunch of medicine and it threw them off the railings and they're gone now.
How old were you at this time in your life?
28, 29. Yeah. Yeah, so 6 years ago. So yeah, it was a long drawn out process to get that diagnosis. And just how the whole process that I went through was very difficult. Like, thank God I got the diagnosis. I'm supposed to actually being reconnected with the psychiatrist that gave me the diagnosis. Um,
And I'm
and
curious, like, what does being diagnosed why does being diagnosed or having the diagnosis feel like a step forward? Like, what does that mean to now know that you have bipolar disorder?
I guess for me, I think the biggest piece is just understanding myself. Because again, as I said, I'm very temperamental. A lot of people in my life say they feel like they have to walk on eggshells around me. They never know what's going to set me off, and I'm just like, "What are you talking about? I gave you all the clear things, not to da 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 da." And so I think like I've been thinking. So I'm not medicated right now. I was for actually. I think when I started LumiQ, I think I was a lot heavier due to the medication. On top of that, it was just very like when I stopped taking the meds, it felt like I woke up from a dream, right? And so that's no way to live either, right? And so just feeling like that all the time, and it's just like slow and sluggish, and not really, being yourself. And I was still able to perform. I probably could have done better if I was off the meds, but the thing that helped me understand is that like I do like I don't like the sedative piece, but I am opening up to the idea of mood stabilization because those it's not even like high highs and low lows. It's just like very erratic. I could be happy, angry, all this type of stuff very frequently. And just,
Yeah, emotional regulation. Have you
yeah,
done, like, other kinds of therapies like CBT or that kinda stuff?
yeah, it's helped me rewire my brain a little bit more because like the polarization, it was a big thing, like, my way or the highway, that type of deal.
Yeah, it's so interesting because a lot of the, like, productive elements of bipolar disorder are actually probably rewarded in the workplace, like hyper productivity and go, go, go and no sleep. And
Yeah.
how have you worked to kind of even the way that you're talking about your work now, you've said a few times like, oh, I could have done better, or I could have done more. Like, how are you teaching yourself that doing enough is enough now, you know?
I don't know if I am, to be candid, because like the company I'm at right now, it's literally like my literal dream job. This is what I was working towards my entire career. But then, I started my own company, Legal Pod, and I thought that was gonna be the way I leave the corporate world and have my own thing. It didn't go the way I thought. I shouldn't even talk about it past tense. It's still going, but there's just been a couple bumps in the road, and so I was like, I'm never gonna work a day job again. And then this opportunity presents itself, and you're just like, well, fuck. Yeah, I guess we'll do it. This is the one. This is the one, right? And so for me now, like there is a level, like I can't lie, like I was out of work for a few months. And so and by choice, I was just kind of like, if there's a good company that comes along, I don't really care about financial aspects. If I have to suffer, I'll suffer. I don't have kids or anything like that or a partner to support, but like the challenge of being able to do my best and be at Olympic level, I rate Concio for this because like there are, you don't get me wrong, there's days we might stay on until like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. or whatever. But a lot of the times it's like, nope, it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, everyone's logged off. It's not like you're getting emails at 1 a.m. worrying about shit and stuff like that, which is good. So like I think even the culture of this company is already there, which is really nice, but there's still the go, go, go culture of, tech sales and have an impact. Like for me, like I just closed a deal 3 weeks in, and even then, even though it's a nice accomplishment, like it's not the best deal because I don't know everything, and the way it's set up is kind of wonky, and I'm just like, fuck, you should have done better. But at the same time, I closed the deal in 3 weeks of starting when I barely,
Right.
right? So I think there's a level of like psychological or emotional safety of just being like easy on myself. Like I've had psychics, I've had mentors. Everyone's just like, you don't give yourself enough credit. You don't give yourself enough credit. And like, I think I am highly critical of myself and others as a result. I'm not sure if that's like a bipolar thing or some other sort of trauma or whatever, but I always expect better, right? Of myself and
Huh.
others. It's not just, and I know that, that has impacts on folks around me for sure. All that to say is just like yeah, like I do expect the best. I do try. I'm a little bit jaded and bitter about tech sales or the tech ecosystem overall. You know how it is. We get sold a bill of goods. And, it's not necessarily that, regardless of any company you work at. But like, so I think that's the part of that in my mouth as well, where I'm just like, should I really have worked that hard? Should I have given up my 20s just working away? I mean, like I hit my goals. That's great. But like one of the guys that I looked up to when I was at Tulip when I just started, I remember one time like like there was something had happened and he left at like 12 midnight and I didn't leave until an hour later. And he was just like, you're still here, man. Like I'm here because there's a fucking emergency. Like, why are you here? I'm like, dude, everybody just quit on my team. So I'm like carrying the team right now. And he's just like, you're wasting your 20s, man. You're wasting your 20s. And I'm just like, get out here, leave me alone. But in hindsight, there was probably more I could have done when I was younger.
And I wonder, I mean, now you say that you're at your dream job and you're obviously very vocal about, your mental health. Was there any fear about sharing that part of yourself in like the interview process or at work now? Because the stigma does exist, you know?
Yeah, and I give zero fucks. I candidly really do. I don't care anymore.
How did you get there?
Actually, that's funny. So I think I don't know if you know this, but like when I joined LumiQ, I was like 6 months out of jail. So and that was all related to my mental health challenges. So the way that I got there was that I just had to accept my story as is. Like, don't get me wrong, I was somewhat of an asshole growing up and doing things that weren't necessarily nice or legal and turn my life around and all of that. But when all this mental health stuff had happened, I'd already turned my life around and gotten myself straight. And so it was a weird point of like when I was in the interview process with LumiQ, it was hard to bring up, but I had to own up to it because I'd just gotten rejected for another job for having a record. It was like the guy wanted to hire me. It was great, but I couldn't pass the background check, right? Because it would show that charge, right? And so and I wasn't in jail for a long time or anything. I'm not some hardened criminal. It was like literally just a few months. But it was almost like exposure therapy. I just started talking about it more and more and more and just forcing myself to open up about it. And so when I was in the interview process with the CEO of the company, I just said, "Hey, this is my story, warts and all." I told him everything, like literally everything. Just be like, if we're gonna be in this for the next 7 years, here's me, man. Take it or leave it. That was literally it. And I was just kind of like, I would like, as much as it was my dream job, at the same time, like 2015 Radz would have killed for this opportunity, right? I probably wouldn't have said anything, da da da. Da. But now I'm at a point where like I'm confident in my abilities to, generate revenue, whether it's through my own or for an employer. And so for me, I'm just like, if you miss out, you miss out. That's your loss at this point. Kind
It
of.
sounds like it was fairly liberating too. Like you said, exposure therapy, once you started talking about it and continued to talk about it, it became just like a point of conversation, and you kind of, instead of hiding behind something, you really got in front of it. And I feel like a lot of people, I mean, it obviously worked in letting you have these work opportunities and talking about it, whether it was in jail or the health stuff, whatever it was. It's kind of very mature to say, yeah, this is me, kind of take it or leave it.
Yeah, yeah, and I moved around a lot as a kid as well, and I think I still have, acceptance issues and, people in my life that I should probably not have in my life because of, crossing boundaries and stuff like that, but, um it did help me quite a bit with that acceptance because like I moved around a lot as a kid. Dad wasn't really in my life, and so moving around, always had to be the new kid. Plus that, all of them feeling like the black sheep of the family, all of that type of stuff, right? So for me now, it's just like very, it's been very liberating. I recently just made a post on Instagram about being queer, and and I just said I don't give a fuck about you can think however you want about my identity. I know what my identity is, and it's not necessarily what people might think it is, but I'm definitely not, quote unquote heterosexual or whatever, right? Or in the most traditional whatever terms, right? So even that was just like, look, I'm just getting like I'm kind of like running through these brick walls that I've kind of like, I've been.
Exactly, yeah. I feel like your voice can speak for so many people. Like you can probably bring a lot of strength to so many people who are just having a hard time. Like I think a lot of our instinct is to hide the less typical parts of ourselves, but you're kind of just, laughing at that in the face. I think it's really empowering.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely not easy, but yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your work with CAMH now.
Yeah, so I'm on the Young Professionals Board. It's called CAMH Engage. We're just really focused on raising awareness. The website is camhengage.com.
And Rads, for anyone listening just to some of your experiences here today, what do you hope that they take away if they resonate with some parts of your story?
Authenticity is freedom. I think that's just live your truth. That's something I was told 11 years ago by a psychic, and I never really did it until more recently. So yeah, just be comfortable in living your truth. You'll find your tribe, and everything will be okay. If you're going through it, make sure you have somebody to reach out to. You can always reach out to me, whether it's social media. LinkedIn's probably best if you just need somebody to chat with. I've been there. I've been down in the bunk dumps. It's really a miracle I'm still here, to be honest. But here we are. So being authentic will be freeing, and it'll open up your eyes as to who needs to be in your life and who needs to go.
Rads, thank you so much for sharing just a sliver of your experience. I definitely want to hear more and would love to help you tell your story in any way that I can. So thank you for sharing your time with me today. And I know this is definitely going to help a lot of people. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And that wraps up another episode of Tell Me a Story Season 2. Thanks for listening. If you like this episode or think you might have a story worth sharing, reach out. I'd love to hear from you.